Hello and welcome to Upload,
A podcast by those who upload for those who want to.
or who already do.
And anyone else for that matter.
My name is Lionheart and I've been creating content for over a decade.
And my name's Midgeman and I've been trying to create content for almost a decade.
Together with some of our friends and fellow content creators, we're going to be exploring the great big world of content creation.
We'll be looking into the serious topics that face content creators today.
Because if someone said that to me like in person, or said that kind of stuff to me, you know, IRL, I wouldn't take it. So why would I take it like online? Why would I hide aspects of sort of my identity?
As well as some less serious topics.
I've been blindsided by the fact that one of your old live streams is called Suck My Missile for like the last
Sorry,
10
what?
minutes.
So sit back, relax, and enjoy another episode of Upload.
Hello and welcome to Upload, the content creator podcast by those who upload for those who want to and everyone in between. My name is Midgeman.
And I'm Lionheart.
Hey, there we go. We've never done this intro formally before, so I didn't know if he was going to pick up on the cue, but he's a professional. So before we get into today's episode, I'd like to remind everybody to like, subscribe, review, rate, turn on any auto downloaders on whatever platform you're coming to us from. And if you wanted to reach out to us, you can do so in the comment section if there is one on the platform that you're looking for, or by emailing us at hello, the @ symbol uploadpodcast.co.uk. Right, Lion, what are we doing today?
We are talking about some troubles that we both experienced in the process of creating content, and kind of primarily, how we both chosen to completely sever, not intentionally, but the primary way that we earn money through AdSense on the platform. We both experienced this at different times, me quite recently, and you quite even more substantially, in a longer period of time. And a lot of people kind of they know about ads and revenue, and that being probably one of the primary ways that creators, especially on YouTube, earn money. But you don't necessarily hear about it going completely wrong. You hear about people earning less at different times of the year, which is pretty standard. But you don't necessarily hear about what can go wrong when it colossally collapses or just cocks up, and that's all behind Google AdSense, which some people will be maybe a little bit familiar with. Some people will be like, what's an AdSense? We would it's going to kind of just chill and chat for a little bit. But I want to because last podcast that we did, last pod, do we call it a pod? I like it.
Well, it'll be last for us, but I'm not sure if it's even our last one for the episode order yet.
No idea.
We're in pre-prod of this. This is the thing. Some of these episodes might be so different from one another in terms of the format. We're still nailing things down.
In the first podcast.
Yes, but that's definitely the pilot episode.
Yeah.
Yes.
In the pilot episode, the focus was kind of very much on me and kind of what I've done. But I mean, I don't even want this just as for some content on the podcast, because I've genuinely for several years been I know Midgeman. I know vaguely not vaguely. I know what he does in terms of YouTube and Twitch and paradoxy titles and games and everything else. But also, Midge, what are you? What do you do? What does a Midgeman do with the title of? I mean, I'm just reading off your X here, your Twitter: content creator, community, social media, and event consultant. But you're also I think specifically Hoi4 community ambassador for Paradox, right?
Sure. So,
what do you do?
Yeah, what do I do?
Spill your secrets.
There's a good question, and a lot of people would like to know, including myself. No, so like you said, I started doing content creation, hobby standard, the normal path of a content creator. And then during COVID, in 2021, I was approached by a guy called Adaway, Josh, also now known, or was very predominantly known as the Historiograph YouTube channel. He was at the time, the community manager of Hearts of Iron. And I had met him at PDXCon 2019 in Berlin, hung out a little bit, and basically him and he and some other community team members over at Paradox were like, this person has the exact skill set we need, and just basically pushed a manila folder, a virtual manila folder onto my desk and went, hey, you've got all the skills, please apply for this. And basically a community ambassador at Paradox is a remote community manager. So they're a community employee that is remote. It's not actually in their offices. I've been to their offices. They're lovely offices. But no, we're like the remote staff. And community ambassador is kind of a bit of a catch-all title these days. My journey with them has been crazy because it was me and Josh. And I in the time I've been there, I've had so many like managers above me. But it's a weird scenario because we're also independent contractors. So they're more like our CIA handler is kind of the way I put it. And then my task load has changed. At one point, I was doing every social media platform with Hearts of Iron on it. Now I only do a few, and I'm more like bespoke specialist content. Like I do a lot of short creation and also essentially in-house content creation some of the time for them. Also, on top of that, my skill set is something again that it fills a lot of gaps. So I found myself being on broadcasts for them, helping out with Speed 5 up until very, very recently, which I don't know if I can talk about the full story of Speed 5 yet on the podcast, but I'm sure I will do at some point because that was a journey where I learned a lot of things. But I was doing essentially esports management there and event design, and I was the last PDXCon that existed, the first one back in person since COVID. I was one of two people who knew how Instagram worked, and there was a decision made to make all of the live stream, instead of being on Twitch and stuff, being all short form content and being on like Instagram stories and Instagram reels. So I was essentially strapped into like a backpack, like a gimbal,
like the mobile, like the Live 360 thing. Yeah,
not quite a Live 360, but as close to it as possible, with like battery packs and stuff, essentially roaming around an event hall. Yeah, it was like what's the bucking Bronco game?
Buckaroo.
Buckaroo. It was like I was cameraman Buckaroo because I had to have everything I needed on me to go between both the Paradox offices and this lovely event hall, which was this Munich beer hall brewery thing in Stockholm. I think I walked something ridiculous, like it was my step counting over the 2 days was something like 90,000 steps. It was ridiculous. I was like, it worked out to about like 28 kilometers, I think, of walking in gear, which was wild. But
yeah, that's like, I mean, that's an achievement just walking it, but like with a full like pack, like production pack on.
And then since then, my company has also helped Paradox in other ways. Like we recently did the broadcast and documentary and stuff for the Grandest Lands, both the EU4 and the Hoy one. Actually, on the day of recording today, to date the podcast, the edited like documentary that we made, because we did all the live stream stuff, but Dan, who is our lovely producer today, and we can hear him, but you can't, people on the podcast. He was as well running around with me in this castle in Poland. We had a team of 3 of us, and we managed to get not only a documentary and these live streams out, but the first edited of that is coming out today, and we're also nervously sitting here going, oh gosh, this is the first like full-on documentary we've done as a company, which was wild. And the learnings from that alone as well has been wild. So basically, the easiest way to sum everything up that I've done is I was a content creator, and then I went corporate with content creation. That's kind of what it like amounts to. And I work heavily. I say I work with Paradox rather than work for, because I'm technically not an employee. I run my own business. So we are like a business to business relationship there.
Do you do like a fixed contract with that, or is it like you like literally invoice them for what you've done, like kind of monthly or quarterly or whatever?
With Speed 5, which was part owned by Paradox, it was like working on Paradox games and doing that sort of stuff. It changed from contract to contract, and I had several contracts with them to do certain things. Sometimes it was a monthly thing, sometimes it was at the end of this project or by the end of this project. But for the community ambassador stuff, that is a monthly fixed amount of hours. I do 20 hours a week. In air quotes there, 20 hours a week for them.
So you do 50, yeah.
And I did charge back when I first started. I went through a period where Adaway left and a new community manager hadn't came in. It was the 5th year anniversary of Hearts of Iron. I was the only person on. It was mid-COVID. I was also doing an outdoor children's production as an actor, dressed as a bear. And I remember being like outdoors, like doing this musical of the 3 little was it called Locks and the Three Bears. I was Daddy Bear in that, and Well, I was originally Baby Bear, but had to be recast. And I remember in the interval between shows going out and doing like social media pushes, and then there was the entire like online PDX con that happened and stuff, and I ended up racking up so many hours. I think it actually made internal policy look at it and go, we need to change how we're dealing with our contractors.
There's some more billable hours in there, yeah.
But yeah, that's a strict contract. And then the things that I've been doing for Speed 5 is a bit more free. And for example, the Grandest Land, or also I went and filmed the developer interviews for Millennia out in the US last year. So that was something, and those are again separate contracts where it's like fixed fee rather than hourly. But yeah, that's kind of what I do. I kind of now float between being Paradox's fixer, I think is the easiest way, because I do so many just random things.
Damn, I'm sitting here going like, I wish I had more time, because I'd love to. I'm like, do you need a running bitch to join you? Because that sounds like a lot of fun to.
It is a lot of fun. It's very rewarding, but it's also a
Dan coming in there is like no run.
Yeah, he's basically. We have stories because as well with the most recent Grandest Land as well that we did. There was 3 of us doing about 6 people's jobs, because that was what we brought. It was on ourselves. It's this whole thing, but we also caught COVID midway through. All of us.
Actually, I remember. Yeah,
we
you're
got to
posted
about Dave.
Yeah.
We all started dropping like flies. Dan had
I'm dying in a castle somewhere.
Dan was probably the least affected. Like he got over it the fastest. But we got to I just remember doing the get out, which is the term in production where it's just like when you're packing everything up and you're done. But I was doing the get out. Basically, I was the only person who knew what of the gear here was Paradox's and what was ours and what was Turbo Larp's. And I'm just standing in the corner of the room, like half shivering, barely able to stand, but still doing the pack up. I was like, how have I gotten here? How did my life get to this point? But then again, I wouldn't change it for the world. It was so much fun.
I mean, I'd still want to do like what I do now, but that kind of like event integration and management and production side, one, I think is also like super smart coming from like a creator side coming in, because in the nicest way possible, like obviously Paradox are always going to have a very clear vision for what they want. But I think a lot of developers, and I think it's very true of every business, why you get outside contractors coming in to do other bespoke things, not just because their expertise at that, but it's really useful to have that fresh pair of eyes. And also I think creators getting more involved in this space is a really good way of bridging the gap. Because I think as well, a lot of companies, you can tell when they have very clear design pillars and what they feel is important to not just game design, but presentation, PR, marketing, whatever, what they think is very clear and needs to be. And then you have the community go, that told us nothing of value that we actually wanted. And then you have companies kind of like yourselves or like you coming in, you can be like, well, we can frame it a slightly different way, which still gets the message you guys want, but also gives the viewer, the community, a little bit more insight, a little bit more less corporate presentation, and you actually create a better like feature piece or bit of content or whatever you're doing. And I think that is so important. I think so many companies could benefit from working more with, not necessarily just with creators, but specifically with what you've established and what you've created, because I think there's a lot of value.
Yes, I think it's really helpful as well, the fact that I was a community ambassador with Paradox first. Being a content creator, you look at like game decisions and you see stuff like, oh, they've done this, and you think it's like shitty, for example. You see that, or you see like, you're like, why have they only given us 3 days as influencer access for this content? We can't make content this time. Everyone's coming out with content at the same time. But being on the inside as well and having those two mindsets, I can see now like the best of both worlds. And I really think that's like, for me, that and my background doing acting, having that sort of background knowledge and doing that, like the creative and seeing like, it's really, really weird being in where I am, because it's so many niches that I've now snuck into, because it's like people who make games don't exactly know how a film set works. And while they might know how a camera works and stuff, they don't necessarily know, without saying too much, is like I've worked in the past with projects and they've been like, what do you mean a script? And I'm like, okay, right, okay.
Cool, okay. So you don't even have some vague cliff notes, bullet points?
Yeah, and just
like just a summary sentence phrase to get it. No, okay, cool. You just said cool castle explosions, bang. I mean, that actually would be more than what you've given us right now, but you know.
But it's like, so there's so many facets as well, which I found myself advising on, and also bullshitting my way through. I will say, like, I think the fake it till you make it works in every industry. It's something I perfected as an actor.
I think as well with creators, though, it's surprising how much value you can add just through your experiences you've had, and also like that different lens. Like, I feel like even if you didn't necessarily have all the kind of production experience, you could still probably go to Paradox, or in, say, like my case, like go to Creative Assembly and say, look, we want to do this and we're doing it through this specific lens. I mean, I've done a couple of bits, I'd say with CA. I mean, it is with CA, but it's more with directly through BBC History. We've done some historical interview bits with Creative Assembly, and we've done it with Slytherin, where we've had a little production done with a historian joining me, talking and narrating through a game. And it's every time they go, so ideally we'd love to do this in a studio, and I go, great, amazing, and every time it ends up me jankily throwing some stuff together in OBS because they don't have the budget, we don't have the space, or the first time it was through COVID, so obviously we couldn't. And every time I'm like, can we please do? And the production team I'm talking with at BBC History, every time they come to it, we're like, we're trying to do more of these, because the more we do, the more leverage we have for a bigger budget, which means we can do a full production setup, which one takes it away from you, because I'm acting as host, gamer, you know, PC controller, production manager, everything within that. And it's just like, oh, these are all jobs that need my full 100% on their own, and okay, I'm doing it all together. That aspect of it, like, I know whenever, like, we've had feedback from the game companies, one, they love it because it's such a different production style. The community loves it because it's getting to actually get hands-on with a historian talking about game, because normally you get them isolated and separate, which is silly because the things should be paired together so much, because it's just such a perfect synergy to have. And so many people will be like, oh, I'd love to have like historical documentaries that actually, like, they're talking about these games that are bringing it to life. And I mean, that's what that's always been my inspiration with gaming and history and stuff, playing the games that literally bring history to life in ways that either we can't comprehend or see in any other way is just insane. So then actually getting a doctoral expert in there as well, and every single one I've talked to as well is great, because they're all gamers as well. The last one I did which was Total War Pharaoh, like, half the time we were talking about Assassin's Creed and other bits and pieces, and just being like, just popped in there. But you know, and I should probably caveat that, because some people will be like, Assassin's Creed historical, and they'll be like, yeah, the story's okay, they go off in their own bit. But in terms of the setting, I mean, something that I think Origins did, like, super tangent, but something that Origins did really well was plopping you into, like, they did like a whole separate game mode eventually to kind of explore ancient Egypt. It was like there were no enemies or whatever, they removed it all, so it was like a living history kind of thing that they could then use as a teaching. Like, that is so cool. That is so cool and so amazing. But that only came out of, like, kind of outside companies looking and going, like, what could we do to make, like, to just broaden this?
Yeah, exactly. There's a big thing about that. Just to go back onto the Assassin's Creed thing, and I've also got some other points that I want to also jump back to. But I remember. Do you remember the Notre Dame Cathedral fire?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
they used scans taken from Assassin's Creed Unity to help build
to do the repairs.
Yeah.
I remember seeing that.
And they also did a live museum that also went into the scans. Yeah, like the crossover between games and history.
I think it was with Notre Dame, it was like, we've got all these ancient plans, and we've got some stuff from like the 70s or 80s when there was a last little bit of repair work or something. But then Ubisoft were like, well, we did these like fully detailed 3D, 4D, like 5D interactive scans.
We've got stuff up into the things. Yeah,
we've got stuff way more detailed than like anyone's ever had of Notre Dame. Do you want to use these, or do you want to go with those old plans that you've got that you're not actually sure, is that an atrium or is that a like, what is that? You know, like, that's awesome to see. But also, like, how many people would have thought for that? They'd be like, oh, well, the artist just drew it, right? Oh, no. They would have had, again, drones, they would have probably structural engineer consultations, advisors, architects, all in there helping form. Because not only, especially with Assassin's Creed, not only are you recreating full 3D models in the game of stuff, but you're then also going to like an architect or an engineer or whatever to say where would be the best place to have natural looking handholds that are going to make sense for them to interact with, because that's a big pane of glass. How can he climb that with it fitting in with this gothic styled, you know, gargoyle up the side, or the everything that's going on with it, which is just,
But just to jump back as well, like what you said, like where you had to be the interview, the host and things. The scope of services on one of my Speed 5 contracts, I won't go into full details of everything over there. I will do one day, I really hope to. But for example, where it got to with, say, a lot of the Commanders stuff, which was this esports Hearts of Iron League that I helped develop and stuff. Not only was I the main broadcast host when it came to like hosting shows and co-hosting other live streams, etc. There was times that I was also the live stream producer for a number of months. There was also like in studio, I would like help with the run of the show order, talking with the production team, making sure that they knew how the game worked and stuff as well, because the team over at BME, their specialization was CSGO and those kind of things. So tried to translate, tried to go, hello, this is how Hoy turns into esports. But not only that, but I was like doing the community management side of things, building the community. I'm still the head of the mod team, as in the main design of how it all worked. I also did I grabbed some friends and did some bot development to modify an existing Discord bot to use chess elo to build a rank system and a matchmaking like play thing. I was verifying matches. Before we had that, I was using spreadsheets to verify matches and Google Forms and manually doing data entry every weekend to say who is currently the highest elo player in the world. And it's like
all that highlights like kind of coming back to like, what do you do?
Yes, well, it's
like
everything,
you know,
and I think
community manager is like maybe like the widest hat, but you have so many hats within them. And also I feel like working with community managers, the definition is definitely changed. It'd be interesting actually, because I've definitely got loads of contacts. We could probably get a community manager or an ex-community manager on here to like talk through some bits. And in fact, I've got one in mind straight away. Craig Laycock, who worked with Creative Assembly for years, then he went into Sega and then kind of back and forth did his own thing. He's doing lots of different things. He's also like totally like a random thing, like me stalking Craig on Twitter. He's also building his own flight simulator
cool
devices, like panels, like every few weeks. And he's like, oh yeah, just doing this little circuit board for this new like flight switch readout. So I don't understand it, but it looks really cool. But community managers, when I first met them, were essentially kind of, it was like directly under like PR and brand and marketing. And at least how it was structured in CA. Obviously it may well be different in lots of other companies and what have you, but like it very much, I mean, I don't know fully what they did behind the scenes as well, but very much my impression of what they did was primarily interacting with the community on their forums, on, you know, they didn't have Discords back then, but you know, interacting through all their official channels how they could, not the PR statements that were coming out, but like just hanging out with the community, talking through various bits of updates and new content and other things that were coming through. And in the very early days, they were the initial points of contact for creators getting in. I remember my first event at Creative Assembly was it was a community day, which wasn't just creators, it was just anyone that liked the game. I think there were like 20 of us going to play a Rise of the Samurai for Shogun 2 in like 2012. That was the first time I ever like went to the studios and stuff like that. And that was based off of me just, I think, saying I was interested on a post on the Total War Center forums, which were the unofficial kind of like community forums, but CA, because they had their own, but they knew that Total War Center was way more popular. CA just kind of like lived on there and sat in there. And yeah, getting to it. And then they started obviously seeing the value in the rise of creators and doing more things. And we got invited out to press events and everything else. Seeing the evolution of my impression of what community managers did, like I felt that, you know, they just talk to community, to talk to creators and what have you. And then you're seeing them like, oh, well, I'm now producing this bit of content as well. And then suddenly you'd have like 3 or 4. And then you'd see a name change almost to their role. And they'd be like, they're now content producers. Or what I hope is that it means that the senior management finally realized that they need to spread out some of the responsibilities and duties.
That's what's happening.
They probably piled more duties on top of them, because they were like, oh, we're taking these away from you, but we're going to give you 20 more things, because yay, senior leadership sometimes. And that well, not sometimes, all the time probably, but you know, but yeah, I could see I feel like they pulled community managers away. That now I would say I don't know any of, say, like Creative Assembly's community managers now. One, because obviously they had loads of cuts recently, and there's been lots of changing hands and things like that. And I mean, that's pretty widespread across the industry at the moment, because that's the state of affairs. But seeing the community managers kind of move away, like I wouldn't say, like, the last 3 or 4 years, I've never really interacted with a community manager at, say, like CA. You interact with their influencer manager or their partnerships manager, you know, something like that. And then occasionally you get linked into a bit of brand or a bit of marketing, but everything, you know, all filters down, and you've now got this additional role. But you and community managers originally, and probably still to a point, because they may well be the top of the chain before the senior management, you've got so many hats. That's why I wanted to start off the day. I mean, like, what do you do? Because I have an idea of what you do, vaguely, but that could also mean that you're wearing another 100 hats under there that I don't even know about.
Yes, and I think this is another thing. I think this also aligns well, just to round out this sort of segment, is it aligns super well with content creators. That's actually why you see a lot of content creators become community managers in some regard, at least in the
you have
games
to wear
industry.
Most of these hats doing what you're doing.
Yes, content creators have to wear so many hats, because you have to do all your admin, all your editing, until you get to a point where you can afford editors, or like me.
Oh, you pay Dan?
I pay both my editors. I pay them. They get an hourly. They get an hourly for what they work. I'll happily talk about it. I pay them 15 an hour. He just tried to pop in. Then I saw, get back in the dungeon, you.
Back to the water torture.
But it's one of those things of you have to wear so many hats. You have to do all the admin. I'm sure we'll like fully break this down at some point. But the same with like community management. It's such a catch-all term these days. And I think what you were saying there is like a lot of the shift, and it's the same shift that content creators have to make. It's the fact that to have post scenes, because like scene posts, like have things seen on whatever platform, whether it's YouTube, Twitter, X. Oh no, I'm happy to dead name it. It's Twitter.
It's Twitter,
and or Reddit, or wherever you're posting, you are up against content creators and the general user base of that platform to have your content seen. So it's had to go more than just putting out a tweet, maybe with a picture. Now it's infographics, analytics, it's videos, it's GIFs. Like there was a whole swing of, I made some GIFs for Hoy right in my like first couple of weeks for our posts, and it got engagement traction. I don't know if this was just haphazard at the same time, but people asked me how the GIFs work. I made a quick tutorial on how to do it, and then suddenly every Paradox brand had GIFs for a while. There was GIFs on the launcher now, like images instead of static images, because there was a proven trend at that point in time in 2021 that static GIFs had a transition. And it was like, this is the whole reason back when I was making your schedules, which is the thing I did for a while, they were GIFs, is because they had a higher like eye catch, because the whole idea is you have only a few seconds to catch someone's eye for them to read the post.
I should still be doing them now, but I've run out of time. It's like, of all the things you're like, which do I need to kick to the curb? I'm like, I'm just going to screen capture the back end edit of the...
There is also some like elements, like I know some people's Twitch schedules, etc., are made in MS Paint, and that's also a stylistic choice, so that works for people. So there are ways to like sneak things over, and again we'll talk about, but I think being a content creator, and it both set me up so well for doing what I do now, but is also essentially still what I do now. And I'm sure we'll also just talk about my full story in a moment when we now move over to talking about our demonetization.
Yeah.
I think
welcome to Lion and Midge both fuck it up.
I think mine. So I'll start off with mine first, because I think yours is a technical fuck up. Mine is a societal fuck up. So I'll start with there. So for those,
if it wasn't deep enough already, it's getting deep now.
Yeah, we're about to hit probably one of the. Actually, before I move on fully, Dan has said he's got a video of me dying on a bed in Poland. So yeah, let's just bring that up. If
Hang
we
on,
can,
sorry, Dan, is that the one from Only or not?
No,
because that's a very different video.
Only Friends is not
that one.
Just but no, if Dan, you want to bring up that video of me, so this is how I sum up like being like a production manager whilst being sick. This will, if you're watching the video podcast, you'll see this.
It's the fact that the beanie makes you look like you're like a little gnome or something like that, just like on his deathbed.
Yeah, so this is I've got a bottle of water. This was essentially it was like I'd been on my feet already at this point for about 10 hours. This is probably about day 6 or 7 of the 8 days we're out there. And Dan was like, "Do you want to just lie down for a moment?" And this is it.
Your grandfather. What are your last words?
I should have never married your grandmother.
I was just in full delirium at this point.
Fucking bastard's dead. Good for you.
Yeah. You could just, but there was like that whole event was amazing. Like you could hear the stream going on in the background. We were in the whole streaming setup was in the like royal chamber of the castle, like in the bedroom. It was in the Duke's bedroom, or it was the Count's bedroom, I think. And like, so there was just a giant 4-poster bed in the room, and I was like,
just lie him down.
Yeah. I was not the only person who fell asleep on that bed during the day because of sickness or tiredness. But
I should say I'm not laughing at the fact that you were sick and it was that's bad. It's just the fact like you be lying there looking like a dying gnome is more than
what are your final words?
I'm glad you recovered. Yeah,
no, it was
you should have been like, you're out of the will.
Well, I said I should have never married your grandmother. But yeah, it's like again, like I said, even though I was sick, would never change those events for the world. There was amazing. Like it's the thing, but
it's like looking back on that and like having those memories, like when you're in it, in the thick of it, it's brutal and it's tough. But it's like you can look back at it and just be like, that was bloody phenomenal to do.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Let's go back to the deep dark story of my YouTube channel and lead on to this monetization. So I started content creation in 2015. In September 2015, properly. I started, and then I was earning more money from Patreon than I was YouTube itself, but my YouTube income was pretty good because of I managed to land a partnership with Curse, and there was essentially, as long as you had a view amount back then, or watch time hours, and because at a point there I was putting three videos out a day, each 30 minutes long, the watch time hours are amazing back then.
So incredible.
Because of also my demonetization period and because of the dropping of Curse, the tracked income on YouTube isn't correct, and it was then adjusted because also there's been adjustments now to the calculations. The stats all use, I think, current calculation, so it looks far more piss poor than possible. Anyway, once I got dropped from Curse, it was hard. Like YouTube I kept going, and then so that was about 2017. It began a big burnout spiral, which is, I think, something content creators go through a lot, is burnout. Because again, like we said, you have to wear so many hats, you do everything. There's only so much some people can do. And I definitely have hit that wall on so many times, and I made a switch to Twitch in about 2018, 2019, and I enjoyed that. I had some really good success there, but also because I was still studying, I had some failures there. I went to my first event, it was all going pretty well, and then in early 2020, late 2019, I was following the trend of what everyone was doing. I started doing edited video content, and I was putting hours and hours into video edits. I had some stuff. No, I think they even started way back in 2018 because I was doing things like playing Arma, and that is going to be a key point coming up. But I was making I don't know if you've ever seen Soviet Wombles videos, like that level of editing with some of my Arma stuff. And again, learned so much from those. Really wish I'd never made this one particular video, which we'll get onto. And then I was going well, and then it was taking me 20 hours per video, and I was trying to put out 2 of them a week for very, very little gain of my thing. I wasn't getting the traction I sought. I wasn't getting the returns mentally, and it just sent that spiral down, 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 down until I stopped. And I stopped for a bit. And during the time I stopped, those videos actually picked up a bit, which was great. But at the same time, YouTube, and quite rightly so, I agree, like this is my big problem with my issue in particular. It's annoying because I agree wholeheartedly with YouTube. It's like one of those things of, because I was doing so much content, making so many things, just like bam, 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 getting things out, I kind of forgot this video existed. So what happened was YouTube changed the rules surrounding monetizable content and how content could be flagged. They adapted their rules on, I think, the technical topic matter. I can check this on my main channel because I still have the community guidelines strike on my channel. to this day. And this was a big thing, and this I'll get into a lot of this. But the community guideline strike will eventually disappear on my channel now next week. Finally, it's going next week.
I didn't think they lasted that long.
Well, this is the thing, because of the category it is, they are permanent. So this was the issue that I ran up against. So they changed the rules to include humor. The video in question was an Arma 3 anti-Stasi video. Those of you who know, like I said, Soviet Wombles content or any other things, that is a kind of risky topic matter because you're an insurrection force. So jokes get made, and 2018.
Surely you could have got out of that by just saying, "Hey, I'm not funny."
Well, that's worse because then it just looks like it's propaganda.
That's to be fair. It's like, actually, which category do I want to be in for this? Oh, right, we want to say it's funny. Okay, right, cool. Not propaganda.
So I broke their violent criminal organization policy, which is essentially used for organized crime and terror.
Dan, are you okay? Like, is this the production company's the new organized crime thing? Oh my days.
He's just whispering, please help us. Which is
oh my days.
But so
that's almost like, I almost want to say, like, congrats on, like, that's like
breaching the system. Here's the thing. When you receive a content violation policy, like thing, or just of any type, whilst you're in the appeal process, it kicks you from the YouTube partner program.
It doesn't pause it. It just fully kicks you. Right. Now I understand even more.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it kicks you from the YouTube partner program because I was burnt out. I was not making content. Once it resolved, I no longer had the hours to get back in. Normally, it's a thing of you can appeal it and they put you straight back in. But
they unpause it, but you have to fully reapply. Yeah.
Yeah, I had to fully reapply. And the other thing was they basically went, you're never going to be able to reapply because of the type of policy you've broken.
You're now,
you are a terrorist. Essentially.
Propaganda terrorist guy.
Yeah. Essentially, you're in the same bracket as them. And it's a great move because it means people can't make money from YouTube. And I'm totally fine with that.
Yeah, 100% agree. Yeah.
It's one of those things. And this was the thing. And it took until last year for me to get monetization back. And it was basically spur of a moment. I sat down with my other editor, Foxy. We were working on things, and I basically went, I want to do YouTube again. I want to make content. I think I can make content. I've learned a lot, both working with Paradox and just over the years.
But I'm also on a terrorist YouTube watch list, basically.
But for me, it was one of those things of, because I was getting client work and everything, my editors are an investment. I don't make money from YouTube still to this day. I still don't. And I prop it up with all my client work, etc., and doing client work as well. I want this, even if it's just for us to test things that we can then go to clients. Fun fact about Foxy, she's also now directly hired by Paradox to do some of their edits as well because of some of this. So it does work out. I promise you, if you try, friends, it will work out in the end. But eventually it got to a point where it's, oh no, these videos are blowing up. They're doing really well. I have enough hours to get back in. And this is when I found out that I could no longer get back in because of this. Because even though the video was removed, even though I had appealed it and the appeal was rejected, but it was one of those things of like, we removed the video, we understand this should clear. And they told me this should clear. But in the period where they were saying this should clear, like originally, all the way back when, they turned around and said, these don't clear anymore. Because there's a shadow ban still. So I had 2 YouTube policy changes affect me. I then went to town on X, the lovely Spiffing Brit and other people in the content creator like infosphere that we're in all kind of rallied around me. I knew I said
a human to look at it properly.
Exactly.
Because of course, this whole time you're able to, benefit from the oh so wonderful communication system that YouTube has in place for their partners and creators when they actually need to talk to someone. They don't make you jump through loads of hoops. They don't make you talk to bots or have generic emails. They get you right to the person in the right department first time.
So basically, I laid it all out on Twitter. I understand the video's been removed. I don't want the video back. Get it rid of it. I hate it. I'm fine
Set it
with
on
taking
fire.
I just don't want this to affect the long standing of my channel. I was like one of those things of like, let's perform. Like at the center, I've done my time. Please let me back out.
I've served. Yeah.
They looked at it. It got looked into. And then YouTube's policy changed. And you could now take training courses to have your strike removed.
Ah, cool.
And
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
I could get back into the partner program. I was finally let back in beforehand. YouTube is designed to make money. If they realize, oh, there's a niche of people here that we've locked out previously that want to get back in, because
We should let them have another go.
As soon as mine actually got some traction, I started seeing other posts of the exact same type, and I like to think it's me that had the policy change. It's definitely not, but like with all the content sphere, like all those content creators that helped me. I know that we all talk all the time, but I'm so grateful, because essentially is what I did. I had to take a 10-minute training course, and eventually my appeal was rejected on the 24th of April. Because this is the thing, even though I had appealed and they said it would go eventually because of the policy change, my appeal was never rejected. So they had to physically go in and reject my appeal. They finally rejected it, even though I appealed in 2020. I appealed in 2020. The appeal only got rejected in 2023. In the 24th of April.
And then they could put you on your rehabilitation training course.
And then I finally did the training in January of this year, and it all clear by April.
I went through something like different. I kind of assumed that, you know, when you were like, hey, it's on the way out, and I was like, oh, he's got it all back and it's all clicked through. And
yes, and then I did the same AdSense mistake as you during this. I had to redo it again. I had ad pay back for a month, and then I made the exact same mistake as you, trying to change my AdSense from me to my business. Which we'll definitely get onto. But Dan, can you bring up my YouTube stats, because you can actually follow that whole event that I've just described in my.
We can see it in graph form.
You can actually see it in graph form, and you can see just the absolute period of nothing, like right there, like starting from like.
I'm getting flashbacks from my own one. It wasn't anywhere near as long as that. So
so like they first hit me with the policy change in May 2021. The video came out in like 2019, so it's already an old video. So it was in an archive. Like there's 3,000 videos on my channel, and it's the one that hits me. Again, finally back now. There we are. There's some insight into what I've predicted made from YouTube in my entire almost 10-year career, which is 3,254. Now that's not completely accurate. It's not much though. I am still what I think in the sort of hobby sphere of creation. It's just what I've learned from that and how I've used it. But yeah, let's talk a bit about unless you have something you want to say about my disaster, let's talk about what you went through.
You know, obviously it's fantastic that we've got those friends and other creators that are able to jump on it, and I appreciate YouTube is a massive beast, and it's basically the reason why they can't possibly, and they never will be able to fully communicate well with creators, and it probably will always rely on acts on other social platforms making enough noise, getting to the right person, or just having a YouTube member of staff that happens to be a fan of your content that you can get it through to.
Just on a note of that, actually, the YouTube, what's it called, YouTube Creators UK or whatever, that YouTube, that Twitter account doesn't follow. It kind of follows me, but they started getting notifications on any time I mentioned YouTube in my tweet following that whole debacle and stuff. It's like, so when I was like, I'm going to be starting a new channel, they would comment. They started sort of that account, whoever the community manager or whatever was on that, started actually commenting on my tweets a lot and stuff. It was getting really weird that I felt like I was being cyber stalked by YouTube.
They've still got you on the list to watch.
Yeah, exactly. That's why, which is why when you had that issue, and when Lambert recently had an issue with some YouTube stuff, and other people have had, I retweeted it. I was like, YouTube, I know you look at my account, go check on this person, please.
Yeah, please look. But yeah, it's like, in a perfect world, it shouldn't require us to be like friends with, you know, a few 100,000 followers or millions of followers. Please make enough noise. We shouldn't have to make enough noise on off-site platforms, to get something resolved on YouTube's platform. But I can't ever see them getting any better than this, to be honest, because there's no way they can have enough staff to manage all the millions of creators, probably maybe billions at this point, that, you know, actively are on it. I mean, there are a few points. Like, I actually have a partner manager at YouTube now for the next 6 months. Like, they rotate you through every so often. I had one of these like 4 or 5 years ago. I think they gave me like 1 or 2 like quick tips that were fairly broad. I mean, the main thing is, and I had a call with this new partner manager actually the other week. The main thing I did from the off was to say, like, I know I am not a quick growth, efficient channel in terms of producing the right content to grow, but I'm very happy in the niche I've established, and I'm growing within that niche still very comfortably, and maybe my views are slightly down, but my watch time is way higher now because my videos are longer, my engagement is better, and my earnings are even higher than, you know, they've been for these months historically previously. And this is in where my March month, I'm probably on track for not my best March ever, but like typically March is still a bit of like a not a great month usually, because you're still coming out of January and February. For transparency, last January and February I earned about 4,500 in January and about the same again in February. This January, February, now I've been very much incentivized because I lost most of my November and December revenue, which are the best months of the year to have, you know, revenue and content coming in, going out and what have you. I lost that due to this AdSense issue, but so I worked my ass off in January, February as much as possible, and I got my earnings up to about 6,000, 6,500 for January and February respectively, and March is probably on track for about 8,000, which is really good considering throughout these 3 months as well, I've covered no new games in their entirety as series. I've done a few one-off bits and pieces. The only brand new bit of content that I've done as a series is the new DLC for CK3.
Nice.
All the others are me going back to older historical Total War titles and tying them in, or timing like the Shogun series that I'm doing at the moment. I'm tying that in with the fact that there is the brand new Shogun series on FX, Hulu, Disney Plus at the moment, which seems to be getting a decent bit of traction. And also covering the Realm of Thrones mod for Bannerlord, which, you know, Game of Thrones is kind of one of those evergreen things. If you do it's going to do fairly well to start with. But yeah, I've not covered any new games in that period, primarily because Total War and, you know, aren't releasing any new games or any new content like DLC. Hopefully next month is going to be mad with stuff like Manor Lords and Thrones of Decay and bits and pieces. And then we're going to have my second child, and I'm going to have a very low May and probably into early June. But that's equally why I'm working so hard now, because I know the foot is going to come completely off the gas. Maybe I'll have my January and February low months in May and June, and then we'll bring it back up over the summer. Slash, if I ever recover my sleep from having 2 children now that probably both don't sleep, and great.
Yeah, that's another reason why we're actually just behind the scenes. Which is why we're recording the podcast now and doing big batch of like getting our friends in and
Get
stuff,
some stuff together.
because we don't know how long. Well, you have a set period of what you want to do for paternity, but also you don't know when that's going to happen, and also what it's going to be the effect on the rest of your schedule. So like
exactly, yeah, because it's going to be mad. And also, you know, throughout all this, I've decided that we're going to finally get around to converting the garage, or 2/3 of the garage into my new studio. Which one is, all the money I've got that I probably don't have. I'm not looking forward to the July tax bill. We're gonna get creative with our accounting for that, like all within the legal allowances and everything else. But it's definitely going to be full min-max mode for the July payment of what can we reduce, what can we claim for this, what can we, you know, delay that or backdate it, or everything around it, because there's so many things involved with that. Because you would kind of think, you know, initially people are like, can't you claim it all for your business? Well, no, because it's the garage that's not directly attached to my house. It's attached, but it's part of the property. So if I invest through the business, then it's a capital gains issue when we come to sell. And also, or just putting it through to start with, it wouldn't, you know, even though I was like, can I claim the materials because we're not changing the outside of this? Like if I'm putting the door and the window in, okay, we can't do that. They're like, no, you can't, even for building the studs inside, even though it's for business, it's still an improvement benefiting the property. But stuff like my AC unit that I will definitely be putting in, that's claimable. Some fancy acoustic foam that we're going to put in as insulation, that all I can put in, just whack it on the business card.
On that, I've actually just yesterday, there's a website called Wood Veneer Hub. It's a UK thing. Have you seen those like wood paneling sort of boards? So it's the acoustic foam back one. They had a sale on it, so I've picked up 2 sheets of that, and I'm going to put that there as
Let me know how that goes.
They'll be arriving next week, so that's my next
one. We're going to
one.
just insulate the crap out of it to keep the warmth in there. But also, I'm thinking the best way to sound treat a room is when you're building it. And in the insulation, there's only so much panels on walls can do, and they can do a decent job, like no doubt, but it's never going to fully replace packing it into the studs and into the walls before you seal it all in.
This entire room is just brick. This is just brick wall, brick wall, brick wall, brick wall.
Which is actually super ideal because you can kind of, it's not necessarily controlled echoes, but it's not like when you've got studs and plasterboard, it will react differently to reverb, whereas brick, you know, it's going to be consistent in what it's going to do. So it's actually far easier to treat. As you say, you get a few of those panels in the right place, job's done, and it will probably sound just as good as me packing these walls through with whatever I can get.
Hot tip for everybody that wants to do sound, if they need to do sound treatment, there's lots of guides on YouTube, but clap test, and then rather than doing, you know, those, everyone has them, I've got a cupboard full of it, those, that foam where it's like a panel thin with like the jagged lines sort of stuff. It's far better to do bass traps, which are, you can get them and they basically sit in the corners of rooms. Like you can put them up in the corner. The whole mission is to like change the shape of the room slightly. Bass traps are far better doing that, so you have a better time treating them for about the same price.
Because it can get very expensive very quick. But also kind of benefit of like, oh, we need to pay less tax. Right. Spend all of this on stuff that we can allowably claim as an expense to reduce what we'll have to. So it's going to be a fairly lean year. It's not going to look good on the books in terms of, oh, you didn't make much savings or profit from that. And be like, no, I did not. But look, I fully furnished this new office space. I'm trying to not get excited and I'm trying not to put together like a little wish list of like a new desk and new bits that I want. All the stuff I know I can easily claim and just buy straight on the business account, and it's fine.
You're a VAT registered company, right?
Not VAT registered.
You're not VAT registered either. Okay,
no,
nor am
just
I.
Because
so this is the interesting.
Most of my revenue comes from sources outside the scope of UK VAT. Now, I imagine potentially quite a lot of creators might just be VAT registered anyway, when they actually potentially don't need to be, because, and this is only something I found out once I started working with these particular set of accountants, because that's actually why I reached out to them, because I was like, oh, I've just gone above the VAT threshold. I'm panicking. Like, it says I need to do all these things and I need to submit all these VAT stuff and everything else. And I was like, but I'm getting paid from America and everything else. And okay, I'm getting paid in pounds because there's a conversion and stuff, or they're doing it through their subsidiary holdings. And like Google, primarily for the UK, and you'll probably find actually a lot of companies will pay through holdings in Ireland, because again, for the companies, it makes sense because there's a lot of company tax reliefs and what have you and everything else. And also it's the best way for them to get into the UK market with minimal stuff. I'd like to think as well that maybe there's a slight thought in there being like, oh, it might help out our creators or you know, our people that are using it as well. But essentially, yeah, the VAT, how it works is that you only need to do it on revenue generated from within the UK. Because I'm paid through Ireland, which is not part of the UK, you could still VAT register, but you would put in all, you know, you put say like 80 grand coming in from Google Ireland or whatever for the year, and you'd be like, and strike that off because it's not valid. You would declare it, but it would just zero out. It wouldn't contribute towards any VAT. The only income I generate is from UK based agencies or companies or developers that like Creative Assembly. They pay me for one or two bits over the years, like one or two sponsored streams, but otherwise, yeah, it's keys and, you know, it's early access and what have you.
The UK tax system is actually something that I found becomes kind of an issue with what I do, all the client work that I do. I work for companies in Sweden, and I've worked with companies, you know, in America, etc. They actually, because of how the UK tax bands work with difference between UTR, VAT, and the company registrar things, all of that, because there is one tax scheme in Europe, and it is VAT. Like, they have their version of VAT, which is different here, and it causes there's actually a bit of a. Money will be, I think, the biggest like head churner for anyone wanting to be a content creator, because the way I file my taxes, and it's one of those things of, because I'm doing it all myself as well, there are probably tricks where like I almost ended up on the VAT register at the end of last year because I've been declaring it all as weird income, but it's like an accountant will do a far better job. So if you ever get to a point where you feel like you need an accountant, you definitely do. Don't do what I'm doing. Essentially, I had to do some creative accounting last year because my company's tax end of year is December 31st. I sent the invoice on December 31st, wouldn't be opened, or wasn't actually for December. It was for like it would have been coming in January. So I was just like, oh, sorry, scrap that invoice. Sent it the next day, and I was no longer over the invoice threshold. But again, because 80% of my income as well comes, well, probably 90% of my income comes from non-UK sources, it also wouldn't have counted. But my accounting software doesn't know that and didn't like that, which was
whereas like stuff for the US, which obviously a vast majority of like YouTube and Twitch is all coming through. With that, you tend to do a form that normally lasts a couple of years, or some of them, sometimes you have to do it annually just to top things up, but I think like the Twitch one holds for like 3 to 5 years. But essentially it's a declaration that you acknowledge that the US and the UK have a tax treaty which says that the US won't withhold money to pay the IRS because you're not a US based citizen, and you're not working directly within the US for this revenue, but also that they're not going to like kind of like charge it to the UK to facilitate their tax system and everything else. So they give you the full amount of what you're owed, but then obviously make you sign saying, but you will declare to your relevant authorities your side when you get it, basically, which in the UK is HMRC. But yeah, you do that, and then because actually there was a thing with a lot of Twitch streamers a while back in the UK actually not realizing they had to renew that or do this form, and suddenly you lost 30% of revenue. In fact, I lost my January Twitch revenue because I forgot to redo the form, but now I've done it, they will re-release it and add it back in, which is fine. Yeah, I remember seeing a couple of other streamers tweet about it and going like, oh yeah, we're down like £600 because it's been withheld.
We'll probably have to do those all again actually, as a note, we might need to do those again in May when they roll out the new payment schemes.
Yeah, possibly. It depends if they can
whole rework of Partner Plus, and also because they're also changing a lot of the values of subs, etc. That'll be something interesting to keep an eye on.
Yeah. But yeah, I guess loop back to my AdSense issue, which was I'd been a sole trader in the UK. That's how everything was set up, and I was obviously starting to earn more. And throughout 2022 actually was when I realized, crap, I'm going to be well over thresholds. I'm going to be into the higher tax bracket, which, oh no, what a terrible problem to have. You're earning so much money that you're going into a higher tax bracket. Obviously incredibly fortunate, really happy. I mean, most of that was probably off the launch of Warhammer 3 coming out, because that was just such a good year. And I've had less years since because it was just such an explosion, and it's not had a proper follow-up yet. Like it's not crashing and burning. We're actually going to probably have a much better year this year than last year, but it won't be as high as 21 to 22. But yeah, because I'd had such a good launch with Warhammer 3, with content just doing really well on YouTube, like my January and February then were the best January Februaries I've ever had. I think January was Warhammer 3 was 2021.
Was whenever we first started talking about this podcast, doing this. So it's
22.
It's 22.
It feels, yeah. So January and February 22, usually I expect January and February to be about £4,000 to £5,000. I think January was £13,000 and February was 11,000 for YouTube ad revenue. That's not taking into account then Twitch stuff. I also had like affiliate kickback on game key sales as well. It was a really, really like the best 2 months I've ever had. And I don't know if it will ever kind of get back to that height. Maybe future game. I mean, to be fair, if they do a 40K one, then yeah, it'll probably be ridiculous.
That will be ridiculous. Just a fun anecdote on that. I remember how far-reaching your content was at that time, because I was staying with my girlfriend at the time. January 2022, I think I had COVID. I think that was the first time, but I was stuck at her house. The person I was living with, one of her housemates is a guy from the Faroe Islands. If you're listening to this, Elias, hello, for one thing. Hope you're doing well. But I remember coming down the stairs and he is in the kitchen cooking, watching your initial reveals of Warhammer 3, and it's just like,
I have friends that message me going like, so I was at my cousin's today and I just heard your voice coming from our kitchen, and it was my cousin watching them on their iPad. Exactly. And I'm like, that's really weird and like kind of trippy, but it's like, it's cool to see how wide the spread. I mean, I can see the data and the analytics, but it's those personal
anecdotes, yeah.
Anecdotes.
The small worldness. Yeah. The small world anecdotes, yeah.
Yeah, basically, yeah, Warhammer 3 is Warhammer 3's fault. Had a really good year. Obviously, I was like thrilled because we just had our first child, so I'd had 2021 hadn't been like the best year financially, and obviously we hadn't moved here yet, but we had just put basically our life savings into the deposit for this house, which was everything we had, which in hindsight I really should not have put as much money into the deposit as I did, because I put in too much. I didn't have enough nearly to cover my taxes, because I don't know about everyone else, but I didn't necessarily always think about, I just knew, money would come back in, we'd have enough for taxes, it's fine. But then I was like, if I put more money into the deposit, it will lower the mortgage rate. Might as well. What else am I saving it for? Let's throw it all in. Probably should have invested in more stocks and shares.
Well, I don't know about that reason. To be fair, the stock market's not great.
All that, yeah. I was very happy with how that was going, because we had, this is our forever home basically. We're not planning on ever probably moving again unless we win the lottery or have insane January and February's like 2022 again. But we're very happy here. But that was everything we had. It was all we'd worked and saved towards. Everything we had gone into it. And yeah, throughout the rest of the year, obviously Warhammer 3 kind of like dropped off fairly quickly afterwards, because it wasn't in the best state at launch. Which kind of doing the type, people always say like, did you not see like how that mid to late game was like really poor and what's. And I was like, well, not really at launch, because the type of content I don't do these dives, mainly because I just don't have the time to dive in and play 20-30 hours and find out all these issues. I'm playing it through
as you are, essentially,
as,
just 2 weeks before.
as most people are, just a few weeks before. So I encounter these issues probably as they're coming to light, and then I'm in the same place of like, oh crap, well that's not good. But obviously I'm still going to play through the series and finish it off because I'm enjoying it. You guys enjoy it, everything else. So I'm not trying to hide anything. Or some people are like, aren't you aware of those issues? Well, not really, because I just haven't got to that point in the game where it rears its ugly head. Any other issues, I don't tend to do like one-off videos of like, here's all the things that I hate about this game, or here's all the things that are wrong with it. I tend to just talk about it as I'm going through with my Let's Plays. That's part of my normal commentary, which I appreciate isn't good if you're trying to quickly work out, does he like this? Does he highlight the issues? Does he ignore them? No, I cover them all as and when I experience them, or as and when my community bring them to light within my content and videos. But yeah, then so the rest of the year kind of like tailed off. Then we had a little bump when they released some DLC in the August, what have you, and then into 2023 I was at this point, that's when I talked to the accountants, what have you. So we were a sole trader. We then shifted into being a limited liability partnership, which essentially meant we could use a proportion of my wife's allowance, because she was only working part-time. We could use a proportion of her. I think that was like a 75-25% split, so she took 25% of it, which brought me down below the top 100,000 threshold, so that one, I got my personal allowance back for tax, and also meant that we could better rejig finances and lower the tax bill. I think that saved me about £10,000 just doing that, but I still had like a tax bill for the year of about 40 grand because it was just so brutally inefficient. There was nothing more we could do. Like the accountants were like, this is the best we can do right now for this. We can't go back any further and stuff. Even if we created a company today, we can't backdate it to pull in all that. But what we can look to do is you probably run this partnership for the next 12 months, and then we put you into a limited company. Then you basically, to be tax efficient in the UK with a limited company, the most efficient way you can be, at least when you're earning, 100 to probably £200,000 ish, or probably $500,000 and below, most likely, depending on your lifestyle and how much money you need and what have you. But typically what you do is, and it's especially beneficial if you've got a partner, because you bring them into the company as a director as well. And what you do is you pay yourselves both the personal allowance threshold, which is £12,570 at the moment, and which does means you don't pay any tax on that. And then you pay you pay 37k basically up to just the 50k bracket, which is when you start paying the higher amount of tax in the UK, up to 100k. But you then pay up to that 50k bracket through dividends, which you take from the company, and they're only taxed at 8.5% rather than you'd normally be taxed at like 19-20% for that same bracket. So that's how people in limited companies become tax efficient and split it out that way. So that's what we do. Basically, we split what was all just coming to me and my allowance equally between myself and my wife through the structure of a limited company, and that now brings our tax bill down probably to around about £22,000 a year instead of that 40. So we've like nearly halved it by doing that. Plus there's loads of other efficiencies and stuff you can do with how you claim certain things for the business and what have you, and everything else. So initially me saying like, oh yeah, it's 100k, okay, you then got to factor in tax and everything else, plus the fact that actually we're only directly touching probably, in fact we don't even withdraw the maximum amount of dividends because we want to make sure there's enough money in the company. We just pull enough for us to pay our mortgage, pay our bills, run our cars, have enough for the food shop. I try and save somewhere between £500 to £1,000 to either rainy day fund, holidays, or at the moment putting into Cub Heart's junior ISA account, because trying to make sure that he's not completely screwed over when he turns 18 and wants to get his first place or go and study at university or whatever he wants to do.
Just as a legal note, please do not take us for tax advice.
No, this is not financial advice. This is just our financial situation. We are repeating what we have been told by, or we're repeating the information that we have so far understood and taken on board by professional financial advisors. But please always speak to your own before making any kind of this
would be a great
podcast is not responsible for any of this.
I feel like this would be a great smash cut to the sponsor segment, whereas like someone talking about cash ISAs. But yeah,
we get a sponsorship by Nutmeg. That's what I use for Cub Heart. But yeah, would recommend. It's very useful, but not a financial. But yeah, so became a limited company when this happened in October of last year, my accountants were like, right, you need to make sure all your payment profiles for stuff like AdSense and what have you are now all in the company's name, not your individual name. Basically, the whole problem of what happens here is when you transition from, and this was fine in the partnership because I was still the sole trader from it. We were just allocating different parts of it. When you move into a limited company structure, so up to this point, I just used everything on my own personal debit card. Not smart, really. You should probably split it out. But I just, to keep things simple in my mind, everything went on my own personal card. And that was it. I mean, I had one other card which I put some money aside for tax and stuff like that, and that was it. When you are a limited company, you are a separate legal entity that has to have its own accounts, its own business bank account. It has to have its own, everything has to be set up in that name. So stuff like your AdSense payment profile also need to be paying the company. Like, you can be the noted individual for the company, but it has to be, instead of it being to me, it has to be to Lionheart Productions Limited. There was some miscommunication between the document my accountant sent me and what I read and understood from it and what they had been saying at the time versus what I actually needed to do. What I actually needed to do was go into my existing individual AdSense account and go to the payment profile settings and just change a little form in there, which takes about 5 minutes to put it, to change my name and address, which I didn't need to change because it's the same address, it's fine. But literally just change my name in there to Lionheart Productions Limited and hit OK and save it. I thought, oh, I need to not use this individual AdSense account anymore. I need to create a business AdSense account. I mean, that so far I don't think is a completely, like, it feels like that's a fairly easy mistake to make because you'd be like, I'm a business now, I should have a business account. Now, AdSense and Google and YouTube don't like you having more than one account, although technically they do actually say you can have an individual account and you can have a business account. But it's also a grey area where sometimes they contradict themselves on that and say, no, you can still only have one. And then other cases they go, you can have a business account and then you can also because there's no clear back and forth with someone talking to a human at YouTube doing this, there's no way you can easily check this and be like, oh, quick question. I was like, okay, well, I'll set up the business AdSense account on a separate email, everything else, and then I'll shuffle it across. Now, I still would love to go back to the rationale that I woke up that November morning on a Monday and went, today's the day I'm going to randomly decide to switch my AdSense account. And I was like, why in November? Why in the best possible month for ad revenue do I decide to? Why not? What I should have done is waited until January to do this. That would have been the optimal time. I don't know why I didn't bother. I think it was because, and my accountants weren't pressuring me. They were like, no, you've got time. There's HMRC are going to understand there's an overlap between personal and business accounts when you first set up a company. As long as you can make sense of it and submit the right, what's coming in, what's going out at the right time, it's fine. Not a problem. I went ahead, switched accounts, and now it should have, in a perfect world, it should have been literally instant. It should have gone, your AdSense account number ends in this number, and then it should have just switched over straight to the other one. It instantly went, I think, on hold or like suspended, went red. My ads immediately disappeared from my revenue. The monetization tab completely dropped and disappeared from all my content. For people that don't know, AdSense is what means you can earn money on YouTube. It doesn't stop my videos being viewed, but it means I'm not earning anything. And if you see ads on them, that's all YouTube. Because once people are like, oh, I can still see some ads. It's like, yeah, that's fully on YouTube's AdSense. That's not even linked to my account. That'll be what they're probably overlaying on top additionally themselves through their own stuff. That is not in any way, shape or form linked to my account.
Yeah, just because you stop earning doesn't mean YouTube does. So yeah.
Instantly I was like, shit. Like, there's not an undo. The first things, and the things I was reading was like, okay, well, once it gets approved, it can take up to 28 days. But because you're already in the partner program, YouTube partner program, it should be instant. So I was like, okay, well, if I can get this sorted, it should be instant. It should go straight over. So I started emailing panicked someone, and with a bit back and forth, they were a bit confused about what I'd done. I mean, I was confused about what I'd done anyway. And they went, right, well, once this gets approved, it should be fairly instant, but it can take up to 28 days. And I was like going, oh my God, 28 days, we're going to be into Christmas. Like, and at that point, I just started 3 new series, which is my best time to earn revenue. So I was like, oh, I could not apply. Again, I don't know what came over me that day to go, all right, today's the day I'm going to do it. Like, why past me? Why did you do it?
For me, because I did mine in July of last year is when this happened for me. It was like, I did it because I was like, oh, I've had some spikes of videos, I'm earning money again. Oh no, it's going to go onto my old AdSense. It's like, oh,
let's sort that out.
Back when I was a limited company, I've just stopped being, back when I was a sole trade, like, what's it called? Self-employed.
Yeah.
It needs to be on my limited company. Did that, and I was like, and I fucked it up and did the thing of like, I realized I could have done it in my old account and then tried to change it to a new account. But to do the changeover stuff, if you do it wrong, there's a 32-day wait period.
And it's a very scary, like, we cannot speed this up. We cannot expedite it. So basically, we went to back and forth, and I was waiting. Every day I was F5ing this thing to see it change from suspended to approved. And then I got an email through one morning saying it had been denied. And I was like, shit, why is it being denied? And then I kind of realized why it being denied is because I have my second channel, Lionheart Adventures, which had the AdSense account. Now, in actual fact, I think that was my saving grace of getting this at least back online. I mean, I still had to wait the 31 days, but when the 30 days, one days were up, it went through instantly because it was already an active account. Because they were also telling me once it's been approved, it's still not ready to go live straight away. It has to get linked. It then has to be approved by the monetization team. Although then there's in the same document they have about this same web help page or whatever, it also says, oh, but if you're in the partnership program, it should only take up to 24 hours. And but then you talk to their staff on email, and they're saying, no, it could take up to 28 days. And you're like, what? Why? Like, there's no consistency here. And again, this is all through just whoever had been put into the support case for this, because I did get it supported. Loads of people retweeted when I was like shouting out on Twitter and what have you, going like, I don't know what's going on. I even have I have a contact that works at YouTube but doesn't have anything to do with partnerships or anything else. They work within kind of the publishing side. Huge thanks to them, because they went and bothered as many of their colleagues as they possibly could to say, look, and because he was like, I sometimes help with partnership, like management of our absolute like top level clients. I'm assuming like the ones like Mr. Beast and, you know, all the massive, the proper like elite top 100 channels. You actually have someone that you can talk to whenever. He was like, look, I'm not your handler, but I'm happy to be your handler for this. And I was like, one, dude, you're a legend. Thank you so much. I'm really sorry that I have to do this to try and get somewhere. And he went through and he's like, we've talked to some people. We've talked to some of the other handlers for these other channels. And yeah, one or two of them have encountered it before. Unfortunately, this is like a hard stop. There is no way. Like, I never got them to tell me if it's something like that. There probably is a legal requirement behind it, because that's why it's so immovable. It's not like an internal policy. It's most likely it's probably ingrained within the US earnings tax registration, everything else, because otherwise it would cause so many issues. Because while you're waiting 31 days, YouTube and Google are still passing your information to the relevant things to get things set up in the background and making sure everything is fully connected to be fully legit. And that's why they can't break that. It has to go through and fail. So that's what I had to do. 31 days, just like you, had to wait for it to fail. And that was the best email to get in my life. And I had this case handler come back to it and follow up saying, oh, I'm so sorry it failed. And I was like, no, it's the best news ever. Because then I was like, I'm going straight in. I finally got the option, because it grays out the option to change your AdSense.
You can't edit it. You have to wait that long.
I even watched videos on how to edit the web page, because you can actually go in and inspect it and actually get the change button to go from grey to blue. I did that and I thought, no way it's going to work. And I thought for a moment I clicked it and I thought it was going to do something, and then it just did nothing.
Oh, okay.
But apparently that used to be a thing, a loophole that people used to do, and then obviously they bricked it on top.
Must have bricked
but
it,
I thought, I was going to try anything, because it was just a silly mistake, a miscommunication. And I tried saying this, and I was like, this is not intentional. Is there any way? Like, I fully understood if I'd done this intentionally, there's no wiggle room. So if you ever need to change your AdSense, don't, and then like take a step back. I don't know, probably like reach out to one of us and just say, is this what I need to do? Be like, no, in vast majority of cases, unless you, from what I've been told, unless you are a like 250 plus employee business or a big multinational company or whatever like that, you never need a business AdSense. Everything, even small companies, are on individual ones. So probably like any creator out there, even if you hire a whole suite of staff, even if you hire all the Dans out there, you don't need to get a business AdSense, most likely, unless you're McDonald's wanting to launch McDonald's content on your YouTube channel.
I love the idea of McDonald's YouTube hosted by Ronald McDonald and the Hamburglar, like proper like. But they're doing like what's it called, like mukbangs? Is that a thing?
Yeah.
Is that a thing where it's just like people are sitting in their car eating McDonald's and talking about?
Oh yeah, devouring food and just the noises and everything like that. Yeah, but yeah. So after 31 days, I had that email. I was actually very happy. I think it was like a Saturday morning. It's normally like family time, so I'm normally not thinking about work, but I was like straight onto my PC. I was like, turn it on faster, spin up the drives, go. And then I was just like, quick, click it. It had gone blue. And then I was like, select the, and because my old AdSense account, my individual one that was still good, was on my second channel that was still live and running, but earning about £5 a month. It was still there easily for me to just go click, and then it resynced, and within seconds, monetization was back on, ads were back on. It took then like an hour or two for YouTube system to then start kind of flush through and put ads on.
Oh, but that's just as a fun thing. I don't know if you had to do this, but for me, the first time when I got back into the partnership program, I had to physically hit remonetize on every single video. I had to go through, which was, I
emailed the case handler and said, like, because I think you told me this, or I'd seen your tweets where you said I had to and I went, will all my monetization settings be back? And they were like, your monetization settings will restore back to the point when you lost it. So in that point, I'd uploaded like 70 odd new videos. So I was like, great, fine.
There's still about 2,000 videos on my channel that are unmonetized. I do not have the energy to go through.
Can you go
because
back
they've
to
changed it. No,
because you can do a select all update. So can you not go back to that page and then
they don't do it from monetize anymore, because the problem is you have to confirm what the content is in the whole new process.
Oh right, you've got to rate each one. Of course you can't.
So I would have
you can turn monetize. Yeah. Oh no. Yeah.
So anyway, we are actually out of time for this episode of the podcast, sadly. So the final message, I think, is don't be a fuck up. Money's hard, yo.
Don't do it, especially don't do it in November or December. Like if you're gonna experiment with your AdSense account, do it in fucking January. Seriously,
do it in January.
Do it in January
and hire an accountant. I think is the biggest takeaway.
I mean, my accountants from this have said we're going to put together a new document now that when we send out to our creator clients, it's very clear, because they said they looked at it and they went like, we're obviously sorry for this. And I was like, well, it's not really your. There was one part of me was like, should I check in one more time just to check what I'm doing? And I went, nah, I'll be fine. That's what I should have done. But from that, obviously they've said, well, obviously it's a massive learning experience for us as well. Like, we're gonna make sure our documentation is fully up to date. But the thing is, this all changes. Like, it was different a few years ago when they first made the documentation. All the screenshots they had were of like previous bits, and it constantly changes. But yeah, shout out to I think everyone that helped outside of YouTube. And I want to say one final thing on it. Like, and I still wish they would do. Sometimes they're a little bit better about notifying you in your studio, but I do still hate that the biggest port of support call for YouTube is Twitter and not directly on their own site. Okay, they identify where there's mass volumes of their users and their traffics, and they want to have outreach on there. But that should be the second port of call. There should be at least log it, and then you can follow it up, which is what people tend to do. But still, you shouldn't be onto another. Actually, yeah, I mean, okay, yeah, they're both social media hubs and sites, but Twitter is very different in its offering. Okay, it's now getting videos and streams and what have you, whatever pops into Elon's mind on a daily. That shouldn't be. Let's go to a really kind of irrelevant platform in terms of what they're doing compared to what we're doing. It's not irrelevant in terms of the viewers and what have you, or the numbers of users using it. But if maybe they went, let's send everyone to Twitch to then log a support with our YouTube Twitch channel.
Amazon would love that though.
That would almost make more sense than what they do with Twitter. But I mean, at least they've got a port of call, even though most of the answers are straight from the bot, and it's frustrating to get like 10 layers deep and they go, have you read this article? Of course I fucking have.
Do you want to reach out to us for our DMs? I'm already there.
I'm there. I live there. I live there.
But yes, that is us for today. Thank you for everybody watching the podcast. I'm sure you'll see more of us stress about this. I don't think this is this topic done. This is so like cursory, like the beginning of everything.
Upload is where we unload on you guys.
Oh, hello.
Yeah, I kind of wanted to say that at the start. I was like, you were like, it's the creator.
Oh no. Oh no.
I can and I will, Dan. I can keep it in the edit.
They're saying that we can't say that, but we definitely can.
Yeah, we're going with it. Yeah, welcome to the Upload podcast where we unload on you.
But if you have a question about any of the topics raised in this podcast, please reach out to us either via our email. If you have questions for us, we will be doing segments where we answer community questions. We do have some we wanted to touch, but we wanted to get these first couple of episodes out of the way. Also, it's like in future as well, when our guest list is going to be a bit more announced, once we're a bit more public, you'll be able to ask specific questions to our guests and sort of stuff. Remember to leave a review. If you leave a review on a site, we can comment with your review as well. We will happily read out any 5-star review. Only 5-star reviews though. And we want to make this as much of a splash as possible. So tell all your friends. Feel
free to suggest better alternative taglines than unload on you guys.
Yes,
I mean, quite literally though, we were talking about this though, right? This is an opportunity for us to kind of de-stress and to talk shop and to quite literally unload our feelings and our thoughts, because we don't get to really do this. I mean, I know you have that regular session with Dan where you just beat him into a pulp going, "Darn it, your fault that YouTube's like this." I
specifically drive to his house the 3 hours it takes me. I kick down his door, push aside his wife, kick his cat, and then just go, "Dan, bang." Yeah, no, I'm not a violent person at all. But anyway, that's all we have time for this week, and we'll see you next time we upload.
It's a fun mix. Like, I enjoy YouTube. I understand that it will probably never amount to a lot. That being said, like, my kids saw that I had however many subscribers I have, I don't even know, and they're like, "Oh my word, Dad, like, you have that many people?" And I'm like, "That, yeah." And so, like, you know, a 30,000 subscribers to me just doesn't seem that much. But you ask a normal person, they're like, "Holy crap, you have that many people following you?" Like, it's a fun thing, and you know, it gives you just great perspective, and just like it is humbling in a lot of ways, because by many definitions that is a successful channel. You know, and I work with some amazing creators who have stats that blow my mind. Lionheart's consistency in his views on episode 1378 of something that's taken 3 years to complete blows my mind, and it's awesome. But yeah, it's a fun mix. I wouldn't trade it for anything.